Thank you everyone for joining us. My name is Hemang Panchal. This is the 11th webinar exploring the functionality of Powerproject. Previous webinars are on the Solid Support website, where you will also find information on Powerproject online training courses. Remember that Solid Support can help with your Powerproject setup, templates, and code libraries. We are once again lucky to have Chris Ray with us from Microsoft to conduct today's session. So over to you, Chris.
Thank you, Hemang. Thank you, and welcome everyone. Thank you for attending this morning. So, as Hemang said, just to give you an introduction, we've got Hemang and myself on this webinar today. And this webinar, just before we start, there's a few. Everybody is muted, so we won't be able to hear you. There is a question section, and then you can minimize this control panel on the side of your screen. So, if you put a question, that will pop up, and we'll try and answer it as we go, or at the end. And if we can't get around to it, we'll follow up after that with emails and so forth. So today's session is on earned value analysis inside Powerproject. And the kind of areas we're going to be looking at the moment is what is earned value analysis, earned value analysis inside Powerproject using the EVA reporter in Powerproject, and conclusions to that. Now, obviously earned value is quite a large subject, and we're going to cover it in look at about a 20 or 30 minute presentation on this. So there's lots more out there. There's lots out there on the internet and the YouTube and so forth there. So we're just giving you an idea from Powerproject's perspective of what you can do, and some of the things that you might want to do, and different ways to do that. So we'll first off start off about what earned value as, or EVA is in there. And as you can see, it's, earned value as in its name, earned in cost, is where cost can be assigned to tasks in the project. And that can be used when referenced to a baseline to see if a project is how that's performing ahead or behind. When they say that's known as cost-based EVA. Inside there, Powerproject supports earned value tokens inside there, and one of the things we'll come to is that to get a full earned value analysis information inside Powerproject, you would have to, or in a planning or scheduling tool, you would have to cost load your project. What we're also going to show you is the EVA reporter, the earned value reporter, which allows you to not have to cost load your project, but still get an EVA graph of how you're performing on there. So when we talk about what earned value analysis is, there's a number of different fields and columns that you would be looking at. And if we bring up the classic ones that you're going to have here, is how much work should be done, and that's measured in in the dollar amount in there, and that's known as the budget cost of work scheduled, or the planned value. Now, the reason there are two acronyms here is, if we go back a while, everybody used to refer to it as BCWS, budget cost of work scheduled. In more recent times, it's now known as planned value. The same things, but just different terminologies in there. If we look at how much work has been done, that's the budget cost of work performed, or the earned value, how much you've actually done of that. And if we then look at how much did it cost to achieve the work, that's the actual cost of work performed, or actual cost. So when you've progressed in, how much did it actually cost to do that work you've done? And we'll show this inside Powerproject in a little while. We also say, what was the total work supposed to cost, which is budget at completion, or BAC in there. And if what do we now expect the total work to cost, and that's the EAC, estimated at completion. So as we start going through entering progress and updating actuals inside here, those values will change to tell us, at the estimated completion, how much it's now forecasting based on what we've done so far to complete the project. So it's important to understand that side of it. And so these are all detailed inside the help inside Powerproject. They're also known across the internet, and you can find these ones here. Now, When we look at this, we're going to look at, when you have those values, you can graph those values. So you could have the dollar amount along the side and the time across the bottom, and we have our planned value going up there as a graph line or an S-curve of what's being produced. Now we can produce S-curves inside Powerproject, and the EVA reporter also creates S-curves, and we'll look at those as we go through. But it's just understanding those tokens that we had, how they're used in these classic graphs. So we have our planned value there, and we have our actual cost there. Now our actual cost will only go up to our report date, which is the black line in the middle, because that's what we've progressed so far. If we have our earned value there, which is the earned value graph we've got inside, so we have our planned or budget cost of work scheduled, we have our actual cost of work performed, and we then have the earned value or budget cost of work performed inside there. Now, we got the difference between those two is our scheduled variance, which is the earned value minus the planned value inside, and we have the difference between earned value and actual cost is the cost variance inside there. These are indicators and variances that you can use to measure whether a project is on schedule, behind, or ahead in there. So at the top there, we have up the top, we have our forecast lines, which lead to our estimate at completion and budget at completion. The budget as completion is from your baseline side, and your forecast is the remaining tasks after your progress line. So it just gives you a quick show. This is when you see these graphs to understand what they're showing you. Now inside Powerproject, we can't produce all these lines as a standard inside the actual histogram, but I'll show you the earned value reporter will allow us to see all this information, and it's very quick and easy to use. So these are some of the fields here now. At any time and point, if the EV earned value is higher than the planned value, you're ahead of the plan. If the EV is below the planned value, you're behind the plan. And if the actual cost is under the earned value, then you're under budget. And if the actual cost is above the earned value, you're over budget. So you can see here we're over budget at the moment on this example with the actual cost above the EV. So again, regardless, once this is graphed, those are the figures you're looking at, whether you're ahead or behind the plan, or if you're under budget or over budget on this. And this is the cost. And then when we look at the cost variance and scheduled variance, and we just look at how they're calculated. So the cost variance is equal to the earned value minus the actual cost, and the scheduled variance is equal to the earned value minus the planned variance. So they're the variances, but the ones that are important again to look at are the indicators that work out, and they're just calculation using the values you've entered or have been calculated for you. So we have the cost performance index, which is the CPI in here, which is a measure of the cost efficiency, which is basically earned value divided by the actual cost. And the scheduled performance index is a measure of time efficiency, which is earned value divided by planned value. Now, for some of you, if you're not used to seeing any of that, that means lots of formulas I've just thrown at you at this point. But the key thing is that in the software, once you've entered your progress, you've entered your actual cost in there, the other items are being calculated for you. So you do not have to work those out. It's calculating for you, and the CPI and the SPI are also calculated for you. And the key thing from your side is when you're reviewing this project is greater than 1 is good, less than 1 is bad. So that's what those values work out at. So that's just a really quick terminology through what we're going to see. And these columns we're going to see inside Powerproject. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring this up. And again, a very simple example to start with. And I have a project here that's already set up. It's just got three tasks in it. And I've already added the columns. But before I enter any information into here, I'm just going to show you that these columns I've set up. When I add a column inside here, I can add columns inside Powerproject, and we have inside here, we have an earned value section, and you have all of these different ones that we've been talking about: scheduled variance, cost variance, earned value, planned value. All of these columns are in there and are ready to be used. So all I've done is added these to there, and I've just put the budget cost of work performed, budget cost of work scheduled in there as well, if you're used to seeing those other terminologies. In this example here, we've set up 3 tasks. I've actually assigned costs to that in here, and I've actually set up the costs with a value of a daily rate. So this is a time-based cost, which has allowed me to assign so much per day. So I've got $300 there, $400 and $300 there. So I've assigned that, and then I'm ready to enter progress. We have our progress line here, which is a week or so into the project. So we're reporting where we are up to that. And I can then go in and enter my progress in here, and I can say that's 100% on there. I can say we've done 50% on there, and I can say, let's say we've done a third of that task there. I've just used some values there based on the task being 2 days, 3 days, or and so forth in there. Now, as I've gone and entered those progresses in, it's automatically created and worked out the actual cost based on 100% of that task, which is $600, and 600 actual complete, and then so forth. And that one is 1,200. It's only done a day of that, so a third of that actually, because it's snapping to the nearest day. And then this one in here. But this column I've set up in here, and this is important to understand. If I use the earned value actual cost one, it's a read-only column. I've used the cost and income actual cost, which allows me to edit those costs. And again, so I can do here, and I can say in here, well, actually, I know that if I said it's 100%, its actual cost is $600. That's fine. I can say that this one's actually cost us $500 to do, and this one's cost us $250 to do. And that works out based on that, these other columns inside here. So now I've got total cost, and I've got a planned value in those, and earned value against all of those based on what I've done. That also works out my CPI. Remember, 1 or above is good, less than 1 is bad. So that one we were over budget, so we're bad, and we're behind schedule on that as well. And if I look at these items in here, we can see it does the calculation. So all you actually have to do is put your percentage in and your actual cost, and all the other figures are worked out for us. The key here is that once you've set up your project, before you enter progress, you assign a baseline to it. So you have a snapshot. Once you've assigned all your costs, you assign a baseline, and that's what's being used in these columns as a comparison. And it must be used in that way. Now, this is very useful information, and again, if you have coming from an XML or anything else like that, or an XDR file and so forth, and they have earned value, it will come across into Powerproject. But the challenge here with earned value, and the reason that not many people perform earned value inside a project, is the actuals you have to enter. So for example, here I'm entering a percentage to a task, 20 of these, and then I'm putting an actual cost. And for example, if I had an activity in my project that was representing one of the walls inside the building, I would have to get the actual cost from my costing side of the business of how much that wall actually cost to put it in. And a lot of times that they don't necessarily estimate it per wall, they may estimate it in a different way, or they don't give the information at the same level that you have your tasks. So it does become a challenge to enter all this information. Now, if I just move across to a different example to show you, in here, we have, this one's got a little bit more activities in it. It's got a bit more progress already added to it inside here. and we have a histogram. Now this is just a baseline view current cost baseline is shown in here, and we can see that we have our baseline cost, which is in blue, and then we've got the red, which is our actual cost. Now, although we're below at this point here, our completion is higher at the top here. And you can see that's because our projects got pushed out, delayed somewhat by the different activities. So without seeing the project up here, down here, you can see we're under budget over this point, but actually we're going to be over budget at this point over here. So we can see that as a potential issue in the project. And these fields we've just entered in the actuals against it with progress on each of the sections using multiple progress periods as we do inside Powerproject. Now, all of this we've put in, we get this graph at the bottom, but we've had to cost load this project fully. Now, what we can do inside Powerproject, which is where we're going to show you a little bit more time on this, and then any questions that people have, is we have an EVA reporter inside Powerproject. Now this EVA reporter, if I click on this, opens up, and it does have some options which I'll talk through in a moment. But in a moment initially, I'm going to go to the first screen. So everything I've just shown you, the graph on screen, is all based around entering cost into your project against all the tasks. But again, you may not have those costs or may not have accurate actual costs in there, so you may not want to do that. So we actually enable you to run it on a duration basis, which means you don't have to cost load your project completely or at all. And it will just work as long as you've got your baseline and then you have your main project with your progress on it. We can then use that to calculate the items. So if I just go here. And so in here, what we're going to do is we're going to base it on duration. I'm going to go next on the first one. And I'll come back to talk about this in a moment on that side of it. The code libraries, we're just going to choose defaults, and we can choose our baseline, which we're going to report against. Or if we don't have a baseline, we can use our as late as possible dates from our project. So even if you don't have a baseline, you can still get an earned value graph out of it. And if we go next on there, I can do it on either the current project, which is the whole project, or if I'm in a particular branch, I can just do it on that, or all projects marked as projects if I've got a multi-project enterprise system, or the current view, so I could filter out just specific activities that I want to run this on. So in here, so if I go to next, and it's ready to run, and then what I do is if I click on finish, it's now going to run this, and actually as it goes through, it's going to do some dummy reschedules inside there. So you've got warning there, I'll come back to that. And it's actually opened up an Excel file, and the great thing about this is now it's giving me a view on a progress period by progress period of my variance against my baseline and where I am on the schedule. So I have this, and this is one of the options I can choose to turn on. It also gives me a chart inside here of my earned value. And again, I've chosen to have not only the earned value in there, but I've got my planned, I've got my actual, and I've got my forecast values and my report date in there. And then it gives me now a graph down the bottom here telling me my schedule variance, my SV is 10 days behind, my cost variance is 15.58% behind in there, and then I can see what my budget estimate completion. Remember, it's not giving me costings inside here because I may not have cost loaded this project. So it's all based on durations. So it's doing the magic behind the scenes to actually analyze and work this out for me. So it gives me all of this, and then again, I can keep that. It does tell me what settings this report was run on. So if I'm running it again, I can remember it's got the same. And it does even give an explanation about earned value, about all of these EVP, PV and so forth, and all of those, what they are, how the curves are built inside here. And this actual file it uses an Excel template that you can customize and make your own by changing, putting logos on and so forth inside there. And again, the advantage here of doing this is that you can just open your project and run this. You do not have to cost load it, but it gives you a view of how your project's performing week on week or month on month in there, how it's looking inside here. Remember, this is going back to the, if I go back to here, and just go back to this. There we go. That's this graph here that it's showing me. So it's really quick and easy way to see what's happening there. And where's my Excel file? That's the Excel file there. And again, this is just inside the template with the date zone alongside, percentage along up top, across the side, and dates at the bottom. So that's a very quick way of looking at that. If I just close this down again, and if I just go to run that again inside here, and I go into my options, you can see that you can turn some of these ones off. So again, do I want to see my as soon as possible and my latest possible curve, my live curve, my earned value? Do I want to see the forecast curve, actual or actual forecast curve in there? So I can turn those off. I can use overall percent complete as weighting as days if I was using that. I can create the variance of on progress periods, smooth the graph, Y as percentage. I can shade non-working time, so holidays, weekends, or whichever in there that I'm not seeing. And then so you've got all of these options in here. Now, more advanced options in here is I can use this option here that says use alternate actuals for costs. If I do that, the system will allow and create some user-defined fields against my cost allocations where I can type values in from my costing system of actuals per week against each of the tasks. So if I want to get to that detailed, I can. I can choose to do not reschedule or to reschedule in there. So that means as it runs, it analyzes, it temporarily reschedules my project to give me a true picture of how things are running. And now I've turned a few of those off in there. And inside that, if I close that and I go next again, you can see it run through. And again, I can choose which one I run it on. And it even allows me to run it on resource effort or overall percent complete weighting. And again, I'll talk briefly about that as we go. And if I go through this, and if I now, still with the same options, and just say project, it's fine. And then I finish. Again, and it comes up inside here, less columns and less lines now. So I've tailored it for my options, still the same there because we haven't entered any more progress. We haven't moved any further on. But again, you can see you can tailor it to how you want it to appear in there. And you can see that this line over here, you know, our actual cost is forecast now to go above what our budget cost was inside there. Close that, and then we close that again. So but this one has got costs inside here, but I'm not going to touch that at this point. What I am going to do is just going to move away from that, and I'm just going to bring up another one, which is just a very simple one that doesn't have any progress on at the moment. But what I want to show you here is that if I go into my different trade contractors, for example, and I'm going to go into my, and again, I'm not really worrying about who I'm assigning at this point, but I'm just going to assign different contractors to different tasks. I'll just possibly choose a couple of contractors in there. And as I do that, I'm tagging those as different contractors. And let's just put that one there. And now if I actually go into Earned Value Reporter again, I go next, I'm going to base it on duration as before, but this time I'm going to report by code library. And inside here, I'm going to choose Nigel's Plumbing and B contractor They're the two that I assigned. And what this is going to do is now my baseline there, next, current project, and finish. It's going to create a report for me. And now I get a trend for variance on progress period by contractor. So rather than having just having that one for the overall project, I can now look at a trend for each progress period for each contractor, plus an S-curve earned value against each of those contractors. And again, so I can see that and there, and you'll see those two are different because it's looking at different tasks. And if I chose more, it would have given me more tabs at the bottom. But I can see when I look here how that's there 3 days ahead in there, and that's 7 days ahead there. So it's showing me different values of how they're performing against that side of it. So one of the questions someone's asked here is what there's about updating using activity count. So activity count is where you assign equivalently a dollar per day to every task, and then you can analyze that against the baseline. This replaces the need to do activity count. It actually does the activity count. It does that in the background based on duration. So that side of it. Someone also is asking about looking at capturing the actuals at a higher level than they're actually on the tasks. One of the things you can do on a task when you enter cost against it, and let me just bring up this one here. If I have a task on here and I allocate a cost on here in there, if I just show my costs, someone's asking if actually when I enter progress here, I actually don't want the actuals at the task level, I want the actuals at the summary level inside here. So what you can do when you allocate a cost, I can go into the properties of that cost, I can go into the details, I think it is, no, yeah, accounted for elsewhere. If I do that, it doesn't show me any actuals against this task. So if I complete it or put 50% against it, it won't show me 50% of actual cost. I can then actually allocate that at a higher level or elsewhere in the project, and that's what that's designed for. So hopefully that helps answer that question. So just going back there, just get rid of that one. In here, I've got my project, I've got my baseline. If I turn my baseline off, if it's still there, but I just don't want to see it, that's my project. If I had progress periods, it would produce those. But the advantage here, and this is sometimes what some people might do, is you could bring your project from another system, whether it be Microsoft Project, P6 or anything like that. You bring it into Powerproject. We can read XMLs, we can read XERs, we can read MPP files, and then you can actually run an earned value graph on that. If you had the baselines and imported those with it as well, it would give you that, or you could use your as late as possible dates for the baseline dates. But it means without having to cost load a project, you can achieve S-curves on all of your projects here. And we have a fair few customers that will use this as a way of reporting where they are against their project, because rather than having to look across your collection of tasks in a Gantt chart to see ahead, behind, on this one, on that one, gives you more of a view of how it is. And we have people submitting this as part of their weekly progress reports, maybe internally, but they use that as a basis to work that out. And again, for those ones that like to look at data and so forth, and again, in this spreadsheet, there is all that report data. I think it's the unverified data, is it? There we go. So there is that data by day in there, and that's how we're working out that graph. So it's all inside that Excel file for you to do what you want. It doesn't overwrite the previous file, it just creates a new one from the template that will work every time. So from a from an earned value side, and a lot of people talk about, you know, putting earned value in, but to put earned value in, you do need to, if you're going to do it by cost, you need to have those costs inside there. You need to allocate those costs, and the more important one is you need to put actuals against it. That can be the challenge, is getting those actuals from anyone to put inside, and then you put inside the to get those actuals to enter in it. If you don't do that, you can do it by duration, giving you an earned value S graph that people ask for. So other than that, so that's really the conclusion, is that yes, you can do it, but the reason a lot of people don't is because they don't have the information. But we do enable you through the, which is a standard feature of Powerproject. If you have it, if you don't have Powerproject, get a trial, speak to Solid Support to get a trial version, or go to our website to download a trial, and it's in there and you can have a play with it. The trial is a full version of the software, and if you've got it, you can open any of your projects you've got at the moment and just run that and see what it looks like, you know, in that side of it. So it's just there and ready. So any more questions anyone's got inside there? We've answered a couple of the questions that have come through so far in there. Yeah, so the one thing is, when you, if I go into properties of a task and go into progress, you see here we've got overall percent complete and overall percent complete weighting, which is calculated weight is 100 there, 120, which is a number of 1 per hour. Basically, at the moment, if I have 2 tasks in one summary, both are 1 day's long each, they're regarded as the same weighting, they're as equal as each other. Powerproject more advanced progress does allow you to actually take that step further and assign different weightings, so different tasks are more important or less important inside one summary, regardless of their duration. And then you can create S-curves based on that. That gets quite advanced side. Let's say it's just a small introduction, really, for you to be aware of what you can do in Powerproject. And because of the earned value EVA reporter, you can do it without any cost load, anything else. You could be creating S-curves today onwards if you have them, if you just open the project and press the button. So any other questions there, let me know. Other than that, thank you for joining. This session is being recorded. You will get an email with an attachment so you can rewatch the video, you can share it with colleagues. Thank you very much, everybody, and thank you for attending.